What if the very walls of Kensington Palace, the iconic home of the heir to the British throne, were slowly, silently killing Prince William? It's a question that feels like something out of a thriller, something meant for a Hollywood script rather than real life. But for the royal family, this is no fiction. This is terrifyingly real. For years, William had been sleeping, working, even raising his children in rooms that harbored a silent enemy. Toxic mold and asbestos left behind during palace renovations. And now, after years of invisible exposure, the unthinkable has happened. Prince William has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine waking up one morning to a doctor's words that shatter everything you thought you knew about your future. Your life, your plans, your children, all suddenly fragile, precarious. This is exactly what happened to Prince William. And yet, for the public, life carried on. He continued his royal duties, smiled at cameras, attended charity events, and remained the figure of strength we have all come to admire. But behind closed doors, the battle was already raging, fought quietly, privately, against a disease that had grown undetected for years. The diagnosis was shocking not only because of its severity, but because of its source. The cancer, doctors now believe, is linked directly to environmental toxins within Kensington Palace itself. Renovations meant to modernize and protect the historic home had inadvertently exposed him to mold and asbestos in critical areas, walls, floors, and even his own bedroom. It's almost unfathomable. A place built to shelter a prince, a home meant to protect the heir, had become a death trap. The irony is cruel, and the secrecy surrounding the issue only makes it worse. So why is this story only emerging now? A secret environmental report, quietly filed but largely ignored for years, has come to light. This report details dangerous levels of toxic substances in multiple sections of the palace. Rooms once thought luxurious and safe are now recognized as hazardous. According to insiders, William had been sleeping in these rooms for years, unaware of the danger. His family, too, was exposed. And even more shocking, the progression of his cancer was silent. No warning signs, no obvious symptoms, until it was too late. For Prince William, the diagnosis has forced not only a confrontation with mortality, but also a reckoning with his role as a father. He has reportedly begun drafting letters for George, Charlotte, and Louis to open on their birthdays after he is gone. Each letter, according to sources, is filled with guidance, wisdom, and love, messages designed to reach his children when he cannot. The thought of a parent preparing for the inevitable, of leaving behind words meant to comfort and guide a future generation, is haunting, heartbreaking, and deeply human. Even as the world sees a public figure, a prince, a symbol of continuity, privately, he is a father confronting the unthinkable. But beyond personal tragedy, there is a larger question that looms over the palace and the monarchy. How could such a critical hazard exist in one of the most protected residences in the world? Was this purely accidental, a result of oversight during renovations? Or is there something darker, a web of negligence, mismanagement, or cover-up, lurking behind the gilded walls? These are questions no one wants to ask, yet the answers could shake the foundations of the monarchy itself. Let's consider the environment that led to this moment. Kensington Palace, a historic icon of British royalty, has undergone extensive renovations over the past decade. The goal, ostensibly, was to modernize living spaces, improve energy efficiency, and restore historical architecture. But in the process, toxic substances were disturbed, mold proliferated in hidden spaces, and air systems that should have filtered contaminants instead circulated them through private quarters. William, living and sleeping in these areas, was unknowingly exposed every night. The cumulative effect, doctors now believe, contributed directly to his diagnosis. What makes this revelation even more shocking is the slow, invisible nature of the hazard. Mold doesn't announce itself. Asbestos doesn't make noise. They work silently, gradually, until the damage is done. In a palace designed to be a symbol of safety and continuity, this invisible threat has turned into a crisis that could not be ignored any longer. And while William continues to fulfill his public duties, privately, he has been forced to confront the full weight of mortality. a task no heir should ever face in isolation. For the public, the story is one of shock and disbelief. For the royal family, it is a deeply personal tragedy, a mixture of fear, sorrow, and urgency. The letters to George, Charlotte, and Louis underscore this intimacy. A father attempting to leave guidance, comfort, and wisdom in a world he may not be able to protect them from in the long term. These letters are more than just words. They are a legacy, a bridge between the present and an uncertain future. The idea that someone of William's position, strength, and visibility would feel compelled to create such a plan speaks volumes about the gravity of the situation. Yet, even as we grasp the emotional weight of these revelations, the larger implications loom. If one of the world's most secure residences could harbor such deadly hazards, what does this say about the oversight and accountability of those responsible for the palace's upkeep? How long were the toxins present? And crucially, who knew? And who chose to ignore it? These questions form a shadow over the monarchy, challenging perceptions of security, trust, and the infallibility of the royal institution. While the public may never know the full extent of the internal deliberations, whispers and leaks hint at tension, frustration, and blame circulating behind palace doors. Some sources suggest that safety concerns were raised but downplayed. Others claim that contractors responsible for renovations were aware of the risks but failed to act. The lack of transparency, the delay in addressing the problem, adds layers of intrigue and concern. And in the middle of it all stands Prince William, a figure caught between duty, love, and survival. Even as the cancer progresses, William continues to navigate his dual roles, public figure and private father. He maintains appearances, meets with dignitaries, and fulfills ceremonial responsibilities while simultaneously confronting the most profound challenge of his life. How does one balance such enormous public expectations with private suffering? How does a father prepare for the possibility of leaving his children behind, while still being expected to embody strength, composure, and continuity for a nation? These questions are at the heart of this unfolding drama, making it not just a story of illness, but a story of human vulnerability, courage, and the weight of responsibility. And then there is the psychological toll. The knowledge that his illness was caused, at least in part, by the very home meant to protect him adds a layer of betrayal and anger. This is no longer just a medical crisis. It is a crisis of trust, of security, and of identity. How does one reconcile the comfort of a home with the realization that it has become a source of danger? The mental and emotional strain of such awareness cannot be understated, and it adds a profound layer of depth to the story that has captivated royal watchers around the world. Throughout all of this, the public remains largely unaware. For them, Prince William is still the smiling figure on the balcony, the dedicated father at school events, the composed royal at official ceremonies. Yet, beneath the surface, a private battle rages, a battle defined by uncertainty, fear, and love. The contrast between public perception and private reality is striking, creating a tension that drives this story forward and keeps audiences questioning what is known and what is hidden. How much of what we see is performance, and how much is the reality of a man confronting the unthinkable? As we explore this story, one thing becomes clear: this is not merely about illness. It is about legacy, secrecy, and the intricate web of responsibilities and vulnerabilities that come with being an heir to the throne. Prince William's letters to his children are a poignant symbol of hope and guidance amid tragedy. They remind us that even in the face of the most devastating news, the human instinct to protect, guide, and nurture persists. And yet, the unanswered questions about the palace, the renovations, and the people involved ensure that the story is far from complete. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. A revelation, hidden within the palace walls, threatens not only William's health but the very image of the monarchy itself. The secret environmental report, the letters to his children, and the unfolding chain of events all point to a drama that is as shocking as it is tragic. And as we begin to unravel the story, one thing is certain. The truth about Kensington Palace, Prince William, and the dangers lurking within is more complicated and more harrowing than anyone could have imagined. What if the life of a prince, groomed from birth to inherit the crown, could be derailed not by politics, scandal, or betrayal, but by something invisible, something hiding in the very air he breathed. For Prince William, that nightmare became reality. The day he received the diagnosis, the world outside Kensington Palace carried on as normal, unaware that the heir to the throne had been given news that would forever change the course of his life and his family's future. Stage for cancer. Silent, aggressive, deadly. The kind of illness that doesn't announce itself with obvious warning signs, but grows quietly, relentlessly, until it cannot be stopped. Imagine the moment. A consultation room, sterile white walls, the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead, doctors, specialists, the quiet rustle of papers. Then the words, precise and cold, yet carrying an unbearable weight. "We're very sorry, Your Royal Highness. The cancer has progressed further than we anticipated." For most of us, hearing such a phrase would be overwhelming. For William, the heir apparent to one of the most scrutinized thrones in the world, it carried layers of complexity. Private fear, public duty, and a sudden, crushing sense of responsibility for the children he loved more than life itself. For years, he had noticed nothing. A mild fatigue here, a fleeting cough there. Symptoms easily dismissed amid the relentless demands of royal life. Morning meetings, charity engagements, public appearances, private parenting duties. The pressures of monarchy never pause for illness. The irony is almost unbearable. The very life he was trained to lead, one of duty, visibility, and resilience, made it almost impossible to notice the silent progression of disease. The first shock, beyond the diagnosis itself, was the rapidity of the cancer's spread. Even seasoned oncologists were stunned. By the time tests revealed the extent, the cancer had moved beyond the point where conventional interventions could reverse it. Doctors could offer treatment to slow its progression, perhaps, or to ease suffering, but the prognosis was grim. The term stage 4 carried a weight not just medically, but emotionally, psychologically, and socially. For William, this was no longer an abstract health scare. It was a race against time. But what made this situation even more tragic and sinister was its source. The very walls of Kensington Palace, a place of history, ceremony, and safety, had betrayed him. Renovations, intended to preserve and modernize the palace, had inadvertently released toxic substances into the air. Mold spores, asbestos fibers, and other carcinogenic particles. William had been sleeping, working, and raising his children amid these hazards for years, unknowingly exposed every night. The irony is both bitter and cruel. A home built to protect him had, in a way, become a weapon against him. As the news spread through the inner circle, reactions were a complex mixture of shock, fear, and urgency. Kate, his wife, reportedly struggled to maintain composure, torn between supporting her husband and processing her own grief. Conversations were hushed, private, carried out behind the thick walls of the palace away from public scrutiny. And yet, even within the family, there was a tension between disclosure and discretion. The royal family, by necessity, manages perception with meticulous care, but in this case, discretion collided with urgency. How do you protect an heir and preserve public trust while confronting a crisis of such magnitude? The diagnosis also forced William into the role of strategist, a role he had never anticipated assuming in this context. Beyond treatment decisions, beyond consultations with specialists, there were personal matters to consider. His children, his legacy. Letters began to appear, drafts carefully considered, words crafted to guide George, Charlotte, and Louis long after he could no longer be by their side. In these letters, reportedly, William poured not just advice but love, reflections, guidance, a roadmap for growing up without a father who had always been larger than life. The poignancy of this effort cannot be overstated. Here was a man, trained to lead nations, writing letters to ensure his children could navigate life without him. And yet, for all its emotional weight, the diagnosis carried practical consequences that rippled outward. Kensington Palace, the symbol of security, tradition, and continuity, had now become a focal point for scrutiny. Who knew about the environmental hazards? Who failed to act? Were there warnings that were ignored, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, protocol, or negligence? These questions are as explosive as the diagnosis itself.